Hi, we're Ariel,
And Michelle,
and
and
we're the
we're the
board
board game
game
tutors.
tutors.
Today we're going to talk about the Cloaks, which are a faction that you can buy separately for Summoner Wars. And this mat that we're using is from the Summoner Wars Alliances set.
It does not come with the cloaks.
Okay, so here the first card shows your starting setup for the Cloaks faction. And on the other side, we have the names of all the event cards, how many you have of each of them, and the turn phase summary, which tells what you do on your turn. Here's a wall, and then we'll talk about the summoner. So his name is Vlox. He has an attack value of 2, is a ranged fighter, and has 6 hit points, and his ability is called Master of the Art. During your event phase, you may choose a cloak unit on the battlefield. During this turn, Vlox is treated as if he has the name and abilities of the chosen unit.
So, this one's important because um, basically, as it says, he's the master of the art. So, this happens during your event phase. So, you look here, past your draw, past your summon, in your event card phase. This is when Vlox can basically choose which unit, that is a cloak unit on the field, um, which he wants to copy during this turn. So he can basically steal their name. You'll see in a minute a few of the different cloak units. And then he also steals their ability. And he doesn't really steal it per se. He, like it says, he's a master. So he remembers it pretty much. So he knows how to do that skill. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, this gives him a lot of versatility. It can help him move across the field. It can help him do several different interesting things, which you'll see as we show you the next couple cards.
And he can be copying a common unit or he can be copying a champion,
Right.
as long as it's on the board.
The main criteria is it's during your event phase, so you have to remember during your event phase that Vlox is going to copy someone. A fair amount of the time, it won't be that helpful for Vlox to copy someone, so sometimes you won't be using this ability. But yeah, because it says here, you may choose a cloak unit. So it's up to you. But you can't do it retroactively unless the person you're playing with says that's okay. Just do your best to remember during your event phase to make this decision.
Mm-hmm.
And um, yeah, it can be any cloak unit on the field, even if your enemy controls that cloak unit because they've done some tricky maneuvering and have one of your cloak units. You can still copy that cloak unit because it is a cloak unit on the board.
Right, yeah, that's important.
Okay, so that's Flux.
Okay, then the first common is called a Scrapper. He costs 1 magic, has an attack value of 1, is a melee fighter, and has 2 hit points. His ability is called Blindside. When an attack from the Scrapper inflicts 1 or more wounds on an adjacent enemy unit, if that attack does not destroy the enemy unit, you may immediately place 1 other friendly Scrapper adjacent to the card that was attacked.
So let's go ahead and do a demonstration of that. So let's say here I had one scrapper here, one scrapper here, and let's just pretend this was the enemy summoner. So if the scrapper attacks this the scrapper attacks this enemy summoner, you roll a die. You roll a successful hit, a 3. So that means using blindside, even though you're past your movement phase, you can move another friendly scrapper adjacent to the unit that was just attacked. Obviously, I forgot to put the wound marker. So he did one successful attack. And then now, because of blindside, another scrapper can join him adjacent to that same unit and also attack it. Another success. That would deal 2 damage to that enemy summoner, not 3.
And
2.
you did still have to have an attack remaining in order for that Scrapper to attack now. It
Correct.
doesn't give you an extra
Yeah,
attack or
it doesn't
anything.
give you an extra attack. If you've already attacked one person over here, one person on the board, one person on the board, and then this was your third attack, you couldn't do any more attacks after that fact. You could just move the scrapper, and that's all.
So when planning your turn, you probably want to have Scrappers attack earlier than other units so that you have the ability, if you have another Scrapper, to move next to the one that you just attacked. Then you'll still have an attack left for that second Scrapper to use.
Correct. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next unit.
Okay, this is a Gunner. She's also a common unit. She costs 1 magic, has an attack value of 1, is ranged, and has 1 hit point. And she has Greater Sneak. If you move only this card during your movement phase, you may move it up to 3 additional spaces.
So as we can remember, normal movement for any normal card in Summoner Wars is 2 spaces. So this increases your range up to 5 spaces, which is pretty good considering the fact that she is ranged. And so If you choose to only move her, and only her, no one else at all, you can move her 5 spaces. You can get her right in close enough to use her ranged attack against the enemy summoner, and yeah, attack with her.
And this can really frustrate your opponent because they might forget that your gunner can do this, and your gunner can kind of come out of nowhere to attack their summoner.
Mm-hmm. And also, we forgot to say this with the scrappers as well, but Vlox can copy all of the abilities that we're going to be telling you about right now. So he could copy Blindside from the scrappers and be a scrapper, and he could follow the same function as a scrapper. You just have to plan it well.
Mm-hmm.
He could do the greater sneak ability of this gunner if he was the only one to do it. And yeah, you have to choose during your event phase. Vlox is copying a gunner. He can now move 5 spaces this turn. And you might use that to get Vlox from one side of the board to the other, to move him from the left to the right or the right to the left, just to get out of sticky situations where he's getting surrounded.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a gunner.
Okay, and then the third common unit is called a thief. They are a 0-cost unit, so you don't need any magic to summon them. They have an attack value of 1, are melee fighters, and have 1 hit point. And where thieves really come in handy is with their special ability, which is steal, unsurprisingly. At the end of your turn, if this thief is in the back row of your opponent's side of the battlefield, place it adjacent to a wall that you control or destroy it. Your opponent must then choose 1 card from his hand, if able, and place it on top of your magic pile. So basically, the thief steals one of your opponent's cards and puts it on your magic pile.
So let's go ahead and do this example. Let's say the wall's here. The thief usually you can tell here the thief will die very quickly because he only has 1 hit point, and your enemy army is not going to want him to let him through their lines to get all the way to the back row, all the way over here. So any of the back row spaces, if he ends up there, he will basically steal a card from the enemy's hand. So the way this would execute would be, so at the end of your turn, if your thief is in the far side of the board, then you, it says here, sorry, let me get this right. At the end of your turn, if this thief is in the back row of your opponent's side of the battlefield, place it adjacent to a wall you control or destroy it. So you have the option at the end of your turn. So this is obviously after your build magic phase is done, because that's the literal ending of your turn. Mm-hmm. You would take your thief out from the back row. You would either put them adjacent to a wall that you control, or you could destroy this thief for magic and put it here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's what you would do with a thief. If you have the opportunity to steal with the thief again, you might want to keep it on the field, but obviously it is a weak unit, so you have to be careful. Do you need the magic right now? Do you need to use a thief to block people, even though he'll probably die next turn? You just have to take all those things into account. And after you do that with the thief, your opponent has to look at their hand. And this is where your opponent really has to be careful, where they don't want to have just 1 card in their hand, because if they really wanted that card to use that on the next turn, they really should have planned to have 2, because if you use your thief, you can steal that card from their hand, and now the champion that they wanted to summon in the first place is completely out of the picture because now it is in your magic, and their plans were thwarted for the time being.
Yeah, so they get to choose which card, but they have to choose from just what's in their hand. So yeah, if they only have 1, they don't have any choice. They just get rid of it.
So ideally, if you can see that the thief is coming and you can't stop him for whatever reason, you're just in a bad position and you can't defend against him, the best way to prepare for him would be to have an array of cards. So not just the cards that you want, but at least 1 disposable card. So that way you can give that away so it doesn't hurt that much. Or 2, have no cards in your hand. So then your opponent who's playing the cloaks will think, oh, well, I don't really want to push my thief into the back row because there's nothing to steal at this turn. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, basically that. And like we said, Vlox can copy steal and be a thief himself. Mm-hmm. So that can be pretty annoying as well. You don't just have the thieves that are 0 cost, you also have to worry about Vlox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as you have a thief on the board for him to copy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the first champion. Her name is Violet. She costs 4 magic, has an attack of 2, and is a ranged fighter and has 4 hit points. Her ability is Whirling Blade. Violet may attack through other units. All units between her and the card she is attacking are affected by the attack. So this could be pretty brutal.
For example, in this particular situation, these should be facing the other way, but let's just pretend they're enemies. If Violet, she rolls 2, and it's ranged, so she could theoretically, this doesn't happen very often, as you could tell, but let's say she rolls 2 dice against this scrapper. That was her designated target. Oh, that was a pretty bad roll.
She failed.
She failed miserably. But let's just pretend she got a 6. So that would mean this thief is dead, this gunner is dead, and that scrapper has 1 damage. So basically, she wiped out 3 units, almost 3 units all at once. So, yeah.
Obviously, if you're playing against her, you want to try not to line your units up like that because she'll just attack them all.
Yeah. But obviously, pulling her out when the opponent least expects it, and they have accidentally done that, is an excellent time to do so, because then you can attack multiple people all at once. 2 dice for range, which is a pretty good combination overall.
And yeah, they're all affected by the same attack, so she doesn't roll separately. It's just whatever success or failure she got applies to all the ones that were in that line that she was attacking. And of course, that could also happen with 2 units that were lined up in addition, right, as well as the 3 like we just showed you.
And it could even work like that. Like, there's nobody here, but it would affect the thief and the gunner.
Yeah. And you probably want to make sure to say who you're targeting. So you'd say, like, I'm targeting the gunner, and then it goes through the thief as well.
She will die very quickly, though, because she is a big threat. And yeah, she only has 4 hit points.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, and this is Scam. He costs 5 magic, has an attack value of 2, is a ranged fighter, and has 5 hit points. His special ability is called Escape. After attacking with Scam, you may spend 1 magic point to immediately move him up to 2 spaces.
So, pretty
straightforward.
No real big things there. So, like we said, I want to reiterate this point once again. Whirling Blade. Vlox could copy Violet's special skill.
While she's on the board.
While she's on the board. As long as she's not dead, obviously, because then she's off the board. But yeah, he can copy Whirling Blade and use that special ability. So, one important thing about Master of the Art, it copies name. So, essentially, he would have Violet's name, which is kind of funny. And then it also copies abilities. It does not copy any of the stats.
Yeah.
So, that means he will always have 2. They will always be ranged.
He still has 6 hit points.
He still has 6 hit points. He'll never get converted into a melee fighter by copying the name or ability of another person. So, yeah. So that's an important characteristic. You don't do that with him. Okay. And we did Scam already.
That was Scam. Then we have Dagger. He costs 6 magic. He has an attack value of 2, is a melee fighter, and has 6 hit points. His ability is Backstab. When Dagger attacks an enemy unit, if Dagger is closer to the back row of your opponent's side of the field than the unit he is attacking, add 3 to Dagger's attack value during that attack. So Dagger can roll 5 dice as long as he's essentially behind the unit that he's attacking, the enemy unit.
So here, if he was here, and Scam was an enemy, and he was here. So, in this particular instance, Dagger would roll 5 dice against Scam. So, I'm not rolling very well today, as you can tell. I got
2 hits.
3 unsuccessful, but 2 hits. So that's not bad. So, also, rolling 5 dice is just awesome in this game. You don't get many opportunities to roll that many dice all at once. And normally his attack, if Scam was here, for example, he would only roll 2. If he was here, he'd only roll 2, etc. But yeah, it's when he's behind them and they're not suspecting it. You can pull Dagger out all of a sudden, roll 5 dice, and hopefully kill an enemy champion, which would be pretty awesome to do in one go.
Yeah, and of course your opponent's going to go after him really fast and try to not let him get behind any of their units.
Mm-hmm. And also, if you can engineer it just right, if you can get Vlox to copy Dagger's backstab ability, and they both can do a backstab on the same turn, that's just awesome.
Yeah. That would be pretty crazy.
And obviously makes the other person on the other side of the board scream from
frustration.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Magic Drain. Some of the other decks have this. Choose an opponent. If you have fewer units on the battlefield than that opponent does, remove up to 2 cards from the top of that opponent's magic pile and place them on top of your magic pile. So basically, this card lets you steal magic from your opponent as long as you have fewer units on the board than they have.
So always be sure to do mental calculations. Okay, they have 3, I have 2. Okay, that's good. That works.
Yeah.
And then also, it says up to 2 cards from the top of your opponent's magic pile. So the best use of this, obviously, is when your opponent has several magic cards that you can steal. So that way you can definitely get the 2. But if you're desperate for magic and you really need something, you can use this just to get 1. You just have to meet the other criteria.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Assassinate. Spend 2 magic points to destroy any 1 common unit. And you have 2 of these cards. We also have 2 of Magic Drain. So Assassinate is really bad for your opponent, obviously. It's pretty straightforward, but yeah, you just need to have the 2 magic to spend, and you can get rid of any one of their common units.
So, for example, if this was Enemy Thief, so you're going to want to use these against really tough commons. So, for example, in the Muglug Swamp Orc deck, there's a common unit that costs 4 magic to summon, I believe, called a Savager. Those guys are pretty intense. If you don't want to have a direct showdown with them, if you have 2 magic in your magic pile, you can spend those 2 magic, put it in your discard, and assassinate. So you have to do this during your event phase. You spend those 3 cards, then that destroys that Savager. So it's not a very good balance, but essentially you can get rid of a really troublesome common unit on the board that belongs to your enemy and take it, and it says destroy, so that means you take it and you put it into your magic pile. So there's a small consolation there, in addition to the fact that you killed something that was really hard to kill, and you just don't want to face off against it.
Yes, you basically spent 2 magic and you got 1 back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And the next event card is Raid. Choose a thief that you control. When moving the chosen thief during this turn, you may move it up to 3 additional spaces. So, of course, Raid goes really well with the thieves' special ability because their special ability requires that they get to your opponent's back row of their side of the battlefield. And so this can help them get there.
Yep. And so, like we said, 2 movements is normal movement in 2 spaces is normal movement in Summoner Wars. This increases your movement up to 5. So you could, if you wanted to, make Vlox during the event phase a thief, if you have a thief on the board. That's the important thing. The unit has to be on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could use Raid on him, and he could go 5 spaces if you wanted him to. So he could appear out of nowhere and just attack somebody. And also, you can use Raid, and basically, you have 2 copies of Raid, so that means you could bunch them together and do a combo with it. So instead of moving 5 spaces, you could move 1 thief, or Vlox if he was being a thief that turn. You can move him 8 spaces. So something I like to do with Raid and Thieves is basically go to the far side of the board, get to the far side, and also, if the enemy summoner is in a space adjacent to the back row, I like to move the thief adjacent to the enemy summoner and attack him, and then also at the end of my turn, then do the steal move. So that way I maximize the use of Raid and the steal ability. Okay, so that would be that.
Okay.
Next card.
Next event card is Cloak of Shadows. This one has a bit more text. Choose a common unit that you control or spend 2 magic points to choose a champion or summoner unit that you control. Until the beginning of your next turn, when an opponent rolls to attack the chosen unit, that unit only receives wound markers from die results of 6 or higher during that attack. So basically, the unit that you put Cloak of Shadows on can only be hurt with a die roll of 6 for that turn.
Right. And so it basically protects your units. And so basically you have to choose. If you choose a common unit, it's free. so you don't have to pay any magic to make Cloak of Shadows work for a common unit. But if you choose a better one, a champion or a summoner, then you have to pay 2 magic as a basically a payment for making a better Cloak of Shadows for them, I guess. And so basically this protects that unit from attacks that involve die results. However, if you get any damage for any other reason,
like from an event card,
an event card, from getting trampled, except that doesn't affect champions or commons, champions or summoners.
Right.
So, but yeah, if there's anything else that deals damage to you not from die rolling combat, then this does not protect you, and that person would just die or get hurt.
Right.
Even though they have a Cloak of Shadows on them. All right.
Okay.
Now
Spy. The last event card is Spy. Choose an opponent and look at up to 5 cards from the top of that opponent's draw pile. Put 2 of those cards on the bottom of the chosen opponent's draw pile, then put 2 of those cards on top of the chosen opponent's draw pile, and then put 1 of those cards on top of the chosen opponent's discard pile. So this one, it sounds a little complicated, but it's not very tricky. Okay. You're going to get the top 5 cards from your opponent.
So this is, let's pretend this is the opponent's deck. These are the top 5 cards. So if the deck was practically gone, you would just draw however many cards were left. So,
yeah, so up to 5.
Up to 5. So then we'd take those cards, we'd look at them and see, okay, all right. So we have 2 event cards, 2 units, and a wall. So what I would do here is, okay, well, what do I want my opponent to have right now? I am going to put these two units on the bottom of his deck over here. And I'm going to put, I'll put these 2 event cards on top of it. And then I will also take this wall and I will put it in the discard pile, their discard pile. So, yeah.
And so your opponent doesn't get to see the cards you're looking at. You get to look at their top 5 cards and rearrange them. So they won't know what you got rid of. Once they move it from the magic to discard, then they'll see, if they remember which card that was, they'll see which one you got rid of.
They will see the card that you discarded, though, because that goes face up in their discard.
Oh, yeah, I was wrong. So it doesn't go to magic, it just goes to discard.
Yeah.
So they'll see which one you discarded, but yeah, they won't know what you put on top until they draw it. They won't know what you put on the bottom until they get down to there.
Yeah. So, like, sometimes when you use this card, you might use it to put a really expensive champion on the top of the deck if you know that your opponent doesn't have the magic to draw it, because then you know, for a while at least, your opponent has this expensive 7 cost, a magic cost champion. They only have 1 magic in their magic pile. Unless you see them build up, you'll know if they're drawing that champion or they're trying to summon that champion.
Yeah, like they'll draw it on the next turn, and then it'll just take up space in their hand if they can't afford to summon it yet.
Right. And also, if you can combo that with a thief, then maybe if they only have that champion as the last card in their hand, you can steal that champion from their hand, and now they can't even use the magic that they've built up for that champion. Well, they can, but they'll use it for something else.
Right.
So yeah, that was all the cards in the base Cloaks faction deck. We hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let us know if you have any comments, any questions, clarifications. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more regular updates, please subscribe to our channel, The Board Game Tutors. And yeah, thanks so much for watching.
Right, thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye, guys.